which commemorates the 20th anniversary of bilateral relations between South Africa and Cuba. Please allow me to welcome my colleague, comrade, and leader of the Cuban delegation to Freedom Park, a place known as Isivivane. Isivivane is a Nguni word which refers to a sacred place, the spiritual resting place for those who played a part in the freedom and liberation of South Africa, inclusive of all faiths and religions. It is no accident that we find ourselves here today. As we celebrate our formal cooperation, it will not be complete without reflecting on our united humanity and common history of struggle against colonialism and apartheid. To this end, I want to thank the management of Freedom Park for allowing us to host the event here today. This is the most appropriate venue for this commemoration and sharing of experience with our Cuban comrades. Comrades and friends, excellencies, distinguished guests, although this commemoration is supposed to mark 20 years of formal relations between our two countries, South Africa and Cuba's special relationship stretches back several decades. There are few countries outside our continent that have contributed more to the struggle of the African people for liberation from colonialism and apartheid than Cuba. Our bilateral cooperation is a continuation of a decades-old relationship transcending the normal diplomatic relations usually enjoyed by two countries. Many of those we honored earlier today who died in our struggle to liberate South Africa were supported, trained, and some may even have fought alongside our Cuban comrades against colonialism and apartheid. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on 2 decades of cooperation, it is evident that Cuba's support for our struggle did not end with the advent of our democracy. Cuba continued to stand and continues to stand with us in our efforts to build a better life for all our people by supporting us in the fields of skills development and technical cooperation. We have signed a number of agreements in various sectors, cooperated in a number of fields, and remain beneficiaries of Cuba's ongoing assistance in the provision of training and technical assistance in the areas of health, labor, defense, social development, built environment, infrastructure, science and technology, safety, sustainable development, agriculture, and sanitation. Our relationship, therefore, serves as a successful and exemplary model of South-South cooperation and Afro-Cuban international human solidarity. Comrades and friends, as we celebrate 20 years of successful technical cooperation, we must also look ahead at the common challenges imposed on us by global developments.
Together with Deputy Minister Lowell and Landes, we have the honor of paying tribute to the victims of colonialism, racism, and oppression in Africa, and to the heroes who sacrificed their lives in the struggle for justice and freedom. We did so at the base of the magnificent wall that preserves the memory of 95,000 of those victims and heroes. Among them, this wall registers the names of over 2,000 Cubans who sacrificed their lives as internationalist combatants on African soil. Freedom Park is a symbol of the struggles against oppression. It gives credit to the power of solidarity as a weapon in the hands of the oppressed. It inspires us to recognize the value of history and help us avoid the mistake of forgetting it. There is an African saying according to which the footprints of the people that walk together can never be erased. That is why it is so appropriate for us to celebrate here together the 20th anniversary of the establishment of official bilateral cooperation between Cuba and South Africa. 20 years ago, a first group of health professionals from Cuba arrived here to join the ambitious social programs of the new government elected in the first free and non-racist elections in South Africa. They did so under the umbrella of an intergovernmental agreement signed by Presidents Nelson Mandela and Fidel Castro, and with their dedication, they marked the beginning of bilateral cooperation between our two countries. During the past 2 decades, this collaboration has extended to various sectors and has become a beacon of our friendship. But cooperation between Cuba and South Africa did not begin in 1994. The Cuban Revolution, from the moment it came to power, became an active sympathizer and supporter of the wave of national liberation that swept the African continent in the 1960s and was an early supporter of the struggle against apartheid in South Africa. As early as 1962, before the Rivonia trial, young South Africans had arrived in Cuba to receive professional training in medicine and science. It was the first group of many that in the following decades would receive professional education and military training in Cuba, as well as medical attention. The support of Cuba to the struggle for liberation in South Africa acquired special relevance in the battlefields of southern Angola, where hundreds of thousands of Cubans joined their fate with that of combatants from MK, FAPLA, and SWAPO to reject the military intervention of apartheid and imperialism on Angola soil. It was always a cooperation inspired by solidarity and mutual respect, and by the belief in the rights of peoples of all nations to provide each other assistance in the battle for justice. Today, we enjoy a broad bilateral cooperation in different sectors and supported by intergovernmental agreements. We work together in the provision of health services to more than 100 communities of 8 provinces, with professional advisors for the government housing programs in helping upgrade the water and sanitation infrastructure, in the transfer and exchange of experiences for the maintenance of military logistics, in training thousands of South African professionals in Cuba, in the development of arts and culture, like the example of ballet, and in the exchange of knowledge and experiences in government performance and public administration. The partnership continues to be based on the principles of solidarity and respect with which we began our relationship since the testing times of the struggle against apartheid. It is an association totally in line with the concepts defined by the United Nations for South-South cooperation. It complies with the legitimate goal of complementing our respective potentials. This cooperation is for the benefit of our peoples. It's not for the personal benefit of any of us individually. It's not for the enrichment of individuals or transnational corporation. It does not seek the prosperity of the few who are to obtain economic advantages from other countries. It is a contribution to peace and international relations and to the well-being of our peoples. We have the right to be proud of these relations, and our governments have the duty to celebrate them. Cuba's commitment to Africa and Africa's solidarity with Cuba are part of our history. These bonds do not respond to simple statements of intent or occasional circumstances. The people of Cuba will forever be thankful to South Africa for its firm and sustained demand to an end of the criminal economic blockade that our country suffers, and also for the support in the struggle for the release of our 5 anti-terrorist Cuban heroes. Their visit to this country last year showed the world an undeniable example of the fraternal ties that unite our people. Cuba has sovereignly decided to a new historic beginning in its relationship with the United States. This step has been welcomed by the African governments and its regional organization in the context of celebrating Africa Day. We ratify the continuation of our cooperation, our commitment, and our solidarity with our African brothers and sisters. We also thank once more the valuable and unanimous support of Africa in the struggle against aggression to our country. The President of Cuba, Raúl Castro Ruz, when attending the funeral ceremony of President Nelson Mandela in Soweto, said, I quote, "Cuba, that has African blood running through its veins, emerged as a nation in the struggle for independence and for the abolition of slavery, and later enjoyed the privilege of fighting and building side by side with African nations." Finish quote. These realities, which are part of the essence of the Cuban nation, will not change in the new scenario to come. We live in a complex and unjust world with power structures and power balances that are hostile to the aspiration to equity, opportunity, and development for the third world. The countries of the South must act together and in solidarity. Alone, they will be swallowed by the strength and the wealth of the powerful. Cuba and South Africa, with our bilateral cooperation, make a significant contribution to these aspirations and set an example of the potentials for the countries of the South. Oliver Tambo taught us that the fight for freedom must go on until it's won. This lesson should be our commitment. Thank you.